the highest form of soul connection is to be able to hear your soul inside, which is just like hearing yourself thinking. But a lot of people are too cluttered inside. Their minds are too chaotic. So as you progress with your inner work and your own spiritual practices, you'll progressively calm inside. And that's one of the reasons tarot is such an important practice, because to do it, you have to kind of neutralize yourself. You have to be able to get yourself out of the picture, if that makes sense. For example, if you're wound up because you got to get somewhere in a hurry, or you're irritated at your neighbor because their stereo's too loud, if you can't dump that stuff out of you, you're going to have a hard time communicating with your soul, because that's kind of like a bomb going off versus a whisper. You really have to get to the point where you can calm and center yourself enough to hear your own thoughts very clearly. I personally can talk to all the plants and the trees, and even stones talk. Now, people think, oh, that's really weird, but it isn't. And I'll give you a little tip. What you call your unconscious mind actually is only yours at the level of the personal unconscious. If you want a way to think of this, think of God as an ocean, and think of each individual soul as a wave on the ocean. It's still the same ocean in the wave, isn't it? No matter how big the wave is and how unique and individual it looks, it's just the ocean waving. So the unconscious, the collective unconscious, is actually the subject of God. The subject is what's listening to me talk right now in you. I'm the object of your perception. When people used to ask St. Francis of Assisi, how do I find God? It was one of the most common questions he would get. He would say something to them that's very profound. What you are looking for is what's looking. How do I find God? What you're looking for is what's looking. Okay, so what I'm telling you paradoxically right now, what's looking through my eyes at you is exactly the same consciousness that's looking through your eyes at me right now. The ego creates the illusion. So it looks like sitting over there in her house as a separate person, but actually just a wave on the ocean that I'm also in. Like right now, there's waves in Australia, there's waves in New Zealand, there's waves in Alaska, there's waves in South Africa, there's waves all over the world. They're all waving at the same time. So if you think of God as the ocean, the subjective nature of God, the part that's listening and observing everything that is the objective expression of God. So in Tantra, the subjective aspect of it's the feminine of God, by the way, that's the divine feminine. For those of you that wondered what the divine feminine is, that's Shakti in Tantra. That's the intelligent energy of God. That's the divine feminine. The wave itself is Shiva, because you can see it. You can say, there it is. Planets, stars, anything that you can weigh, measure, or look at, or count is Shiva. Shakti dreams Shiva into existence so she can have a lover, a consort, a husband, and a friend. So the myth of Shakti and Shiva is actually the story of how God dreams creation into existence. His first desire is for a companion, and so he dreams Shakti into existence, and she becomes God's first beloved. So God is the lover, she is the beloved. So Shakti's consciousness is actually the subject of God inside of her. So when Shakti says to God, who are you? And God says, I am your creator. It's actually God inside of Shakti talking back to God, but God's dreaming it into existence. So from the perspective of dream analysis, which I do a lot of, and I got an amazing podcast I just recorded on dream analysis where you'll get to see me go through a breakdown of 3 of my Spirit Gym students' dreams. It's going to blow your mind. It blew their mind. The rule in dream analysis is that anybody and anything in the dream, first and foremost, is an expression of you. So if you dream of a house, the house represents you. If you dream of a dragon chasing you, then as a dream analysis, I have to ask you, what does a dragon mean in your life? Because that tells me what the dream is symbolizing. What I'm saying is that your unconscious at the personal level is way up at the tip. So if this is the ocean here and this is the wave, at the tip of the wave would be your ego. Right behind it would be your personal unconscious. Then would be the collective unconscious of the world. Then the collective unconscious of the solar system. Then the collective unconscious of the galaxy, then the collective unconscious of the universe. The universe would represent the ocean in which all things manifest. So think of planets and stars like bubbles rising up out of the ocean, which is exactly what quantum physics says, by the way. So the subject of you, your unconscious, is intimate with your soul, your highest self. If you imagine a sphere, I'll just use this rock. If this was a sphere, and you can imagine like a globe with an axis down the middle, like if you have a ball, like a basketball, and you imagine an imaginary center in it, or a globe, you know how globes spin on an axle, right? So you can spin the globe like in a high school or classroom. The axle through the globe, that's your highest self. That's what's dreaming you into existence. That's where you emerge from the ocean of the divine. Your highest self is the perfected image of you. It's God dreaming you into your full potential. That part of you is in meditation. If you ever meet your highest self, you will probably meet a being that looks similar to you, but it's an archetypal type expression of you, because the highest self can manifest in countless lifetimes as a male, as a female. So that highest self is like the axle, and it's what would be called the axis mundi, which means it's the center of yourself. It's what everything about you is rotating around. Your unconscious would be at the bottom. So the highest self would be the north pole of the globe. The unconscious would be the south pole. And the ego would be like an eyeball sticking out. You know, like that little picture of the moon right there. So you've got, and the soul would be what's filling the globe. So the highest self's at the top, the unconscious is at the bottom, the ego is the I, and the soul is what's having the experience of being all that. So what I'm telling you, just to make it clear, what we call our soul is not something separate from the unconscious. What we call the highest self is the spirit that's animating the soul. The highest self or spirit is the flow of energy and information. So spirit is the flow of energy and information. An angel is the flow of energy and information from God to create and to support. So when we talk about seeing an angel or experiencing an angel, in metaphor, what you're seeing is a manifestation of God's mind. So angels are flow of energy and information. So angels are embodied spirit. Angels take the form they do so that we can recognize them. But an angel doesn't really look like a human with wings. It's just how they manifest to us, or we wouldn't know what we were looking at. It could just be a ball of energy, for example. Have any of you seen orbs, pictures of orbs that show up at night, or when people are like making love out in a campground, they'll show up? That's probably what angels really look like. But they take a form that's anthropocentric, which means human-like, and they give themselves wings so you know they're not just an ordinary person like a ghost. The wings symbolize the ability to move through any dimension. But what I'm saying is angels are spirit. Your thoughts are spirit. When you think, I'm going to raise my arm, you're actually using spirit to activate the muscles in your body through your brain. The brain is like a tuning system, like a radio that picks up the spirit of your highest self and your soul, which are all fused into you. You can't say they're here or there. They're all mixed together as one. I'm just giving them names so you can identify what their functions are. But it's simple. Watch this. Just raise your arm. Have the intention, raise your arm, and go up and down with it. Okay, now do you feel what you're doing? Can you feel that? I hope so. Well, the fact that you can feel it means you have a soul. Because without a soul, guess what? You'd be a robot. You can ask a robot to raise its arm, but if you say, what do you feel when you do that, it won't have an answer because it has no capacity for feeling. It's just an information processing machine. It's not actually sentient. So the soul is what is having the experience of making love, eating, brushing your teeth, going to the gym. And so the soul is actually intelligent, living information. The soul is intelligent, living information, which is consciousness. Why that's important is because, you see, right now in this training program, you're probably learning a fair bit already. This is our third session. We've got today and 4 more to go. So, by the time I've spent 28 hours with you, you're probably going to look at yourself and the world a lot differently, because you're actually going to have a much more expanded frame of reference. Your worldview is going to change. Anytime you change your view of yourself, you change your view of the world because you're perceiving the world. So what I'm saying is, if I was to take the time right now to say, have any of you learned anything about yourself since we started this workshop together? Probably most of you would say yes, I would imagine. I would hope, right? Well, what you've just said to me is that your soul now has more awareness of who and what it is. That's what the function of spiritual training is to develop an awareness of who and what you are. The ultimate of which is you come to the realization that what God is and what you are the same thing. It's just, you're just like an expression of the divine, just like a tree and a mountain and a star is. God says yes to all of it and lives in all of it. So why that's important is because each year of your life, you have more life experience, don't you? And if you're paying attention, would you agree that each year of your life, you could look back and say, I make better decisions? Like I'm going to be 64 this weekend. When I look back and when I was in my 40s, I go, how the fuck did I make it? I thought I was smart, but I was a dumb shit. And then I go, God, how did I make it in my 30s? And oh my freaking God, how did I make it in my 20s? I was crazy. I had no idea that I could kill myself, and it's a damn good thing I didn't because I sure tried hard. Okay, so what I'm telling you is as you age, mature, and grow, you have more intelligent energy in you, more consciousness in you, so you're able to look at things with a broader context, a broader view, a deeper view, and therefore you make better decisions. And in what we call memory, you look back and so have any of you been married more than once? 2 of you. Okay, so were you wiser about the person you married the second time than you were the first time? Okay, that's proof a little bit. Well, the average person in the world gets married 3 times, and the average marriage only lasts 2.5 years today. But the research suggests that it takes 3 times. The first 2 marriages just teach you how to make the final choice the best, because most people stay married after the 3rd one. Either that or they just get tired of looking. But the point I'm making is, with that analogy, is that once you go through a marriage and then a divorce, you learn a lot about yourself, but you're also learning about who you're compatible with and who you're not compatible with. And so you learn the signs and symptoms. And so in the dating process, your little inner self says, that's a warning sign. This person drinks too much, or whatever it is. They believe in some crazy shit that's probably not healthy, or, maybe they're a religious fanatic and I'm just not wanting that in my life. So what I'm showing you is that your memory of each experience and your unconscious remembers everything you don't even remember. Like if you could not see the Egyptian picture behind you and you didn't even know it was there, if I hypnotized you without you even turning your head, your unconscious could tell me exactly not only what that picture says, but what's the name of every book on that bookshelf behind you. And that's well proven by hypnotists. Hypnotists can ask you what it was like to be in your mother's womb. And you can recall mom and dad having arguments and fights, the kind of music they played. The unconscious records everything, okay? So your soul has access to all that information because it's not separate from your unconscious. Okay. So what I'm showing you is that as you grow and mature and gain more life experience, your memory holds the living intelligence of all that experience. And so your soul gets wiser. With each lifetime, your soul gets wiser. So just the way you put money in the bank and you build a bank account, and one day you say, look, I've got $1 million. As you're learning and growing and paying attention, you're putting more and more knowledge in the bank. And when you die, the only thing that can go with you is what you've become. And what you've become is the wisdom you've gained from lifetime to lifetime. Some of you, if you've ever studied alchemy, they refer to something kind of strange called the stone. The stone actually is the wisdom you've gained from lifetime to lifetime. Sometimes it's called the quintessence in some systems, okay? So your soul is the quintessence. And as you grow and mature, the stone or the quintessence grows, which means that you can make better decisions in your life. The practice of doing tarot gives you a reason each day to clear, calm, and center, and let your soul guide you where you get out of the way and say, what is the first card, or which archetype represents such and such. So each time you do that, you're actually training the ego to let go to the soul and the unconscious, which means, remember, the ego is only 3 to 5% of your consciousness. Your highest self, your soul, and your unconscious are 95% of your consciousness. So here we are trying to navigate the world looking through a straw. That's what the ego is. It's like a periscope on a submarine. So if you take a nuclear submarine that's 450 feet long, the periscope's only got a lens maybe, that big. And so you see this little tiny eye sticking up out of the water, but below the water is this massive submarine, right? The size of a destroyer. But it can only see through that little hole above water. So that's what the ego is like. The rest of your consciousness is under the water, which is the ocean of consciousness. So each time to grow our connection to our soul, our highest self, and our unconscious, the ego's perception expands and expands and expands, and it gets to the point where you don't let the ego guide the show anymore because it's too limited. So in metaphor, your eyes get bigger and bigger, your heart gets bigger, your third eye opens. You start actually to become more and more like a divine eye that can see in every direction, feel in every direction. And for someone that's an empath, that you have to manage that carefully, because the more deeply evolved you are spiritually, the more you feel everything going on in the world, and empaths can get completely overwhelmed. And this is one of the reasons psychedelics are so dangerous for some people, because they can open you to the collective unconscious, and you can't handle the massive flow of experience in the world at once. And I've been there, and it's very, very intense. And it can turn people into psychopaths and puts many people in the nut house. And the same thing can happen with yoga. This is why Carl Jung said Westerners have to be very careful with yoga, because we don't have a cultural container for what happens when you do yoga. In other words, if Kundalini rises in the Western culture, it's the same thing as taking a full hit of DMT. Unless you have someone that really knows what to do with you and how to handle that experience and what can happen after that, you can end up in a hospital or a mental ward, because we don't have a context for what you do with someone in that state. But in India, everybody goes to a guru, and the guru's already been through the process, so they know exactly what's going on and how to manage you. So the work I'm teaching you, you grow a little bit each day. So there's no all of a sudden, boom, Kundalini rising, like, oh my God, I can see through the walls, and read the autobiography of a yogi to get kind of examples of that. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying is, as you grow your connection to your soul, you grow the wisdom inside of you, you grow your faculty for perceiving, and you get better at directing your intention so that you direct your consciousness specifically, and you get better at keeping your mind from hopping all over the place. Because if you ask your soul a question about, is this relationship I'm in going to work out? Which tarot? Give me 3 cards that describe this relationship. But while you're doing that, you're thinking, oh my God, I forgot to pay my bills. Jesus, I got to go to the toilet. You're changing channels. So your soul is popping all over the place because your ego's directing the consciousness. So it'd be like being at the firing range, but you're shaking because you're freezing cold and you can't hit anything. Like when I remote view, I have to keep my mind totally focused on the target, or if I think about something else like eating, I'll be in the kitchen. Then if I think about having sex, I'll be in the bedroom. Then I think about going to the toilet, I'll be in the bathroom. But I'm like, shit, I'm trying to get to the sun. So the problem is most people's minds jump around like ping pong balls or Mexican jumping beans all over the place. And they can't figure out why they can never make anything happen in their life. Well, they're putting their spirit into everything all over the place, like throwing money out the window and wondering why you can't buy anything, because it's all over the place. You understand these concepts, right? So what I'm saying is tarot is a training vehicle that gives you a reason to connect to your soul, to clear yourself, to calm yourself, to center yourself, and to ask meaningful questions, such as like, how is my day going to unfold today? So that you can engage that as a spiritual practice. So if the tarot says you're going to run into problems at midday, you can say, okay, I'm going to be aware. Geez, I'm supposed to meet my mom at lunch today. Shit, she triggers the shit out of me, right? So then I'll show you later in our training how you handle those things spiritually, so that you can have a meeting with your mom and walk away going, wow, that was the best meeting I ever had with my mom. That's crazy, right? And so that's what tarot does. It sort of lets your soul tell you what you need to know so that you can consciously engage yourself in ways that increase the likelihood you're going to get the outcome you want in relationships to self, other places, things, etc., whether it be how healthy your body is or what you eat or don't eat or drink or don't eat, etc., etc., etc.